Thank you everyone for being here at our February 23rd, 2024 meeting of the Equity and Disparity Committee. I am going to ask if a council member would like to call us to order. Jeff, I know you've offered to be the interim chair at the moment until we elect a new one. Would you like to do that?
Happy to take that official act and call the YDD Equity and Disparity Committee to order at 12:11.
I didn't get that.
Thank you very much. All right, and I'm going to hand it over to Tanisha for a roll call.
Thanks. Zan Ozero. You're muted, but I see you. Zan is present. Joseline de la Graza.
Here.
Let me know if I am pronouncing that incorrectly, please. Janine Hartley. Celeste Jansen. Robin Johnson. Andy Leonard. Jeff Parker.
Present.
Santana May. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Tanisha. So just wanted to start off with a couple introductions. So you might see a couple new faces on here. We have Tanisha Bishop and we have Lawrence White, who are both going to be joining the work of the Equity and Disparity Committee. Tanisha is our administrative specialist who's going to be continuing with the Equity and Disparity Committee, and also a huge thank you to Melissa Gallardo, who's been supporting the committee up until now, and we'll be probably moving off a little bit of this committee, and Tanisha will be moving on and taking over those duties. So just wanted to, and also to introduce Lawrence White, who is our Racial and Ethnic Disparities Coordinator, who is joining the work of the committee as well. So just wanted to hand it over to those three. If you all want to maybe just introduce yourselves and if you have anything to say.
Tanisha, would you like to start?
Sure, thanks. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I'll keep it short and simple. Thanks.
And I'll follow up with that. My name is Lawrence White. As Jared pointed out, I am the Racial and Ethnic Disparity Coordinator for Youth Development Oregon. Excited to join this committee and do the work that I think is promising for our youth.
Hey, I'm Melissa Gallardo, and you've seen me before, and you see me supporting the council meetings as well. Going forward, we're likely to have a couple of admins supporting even the committee meetings, so you probably haven't totally gotten rid of me. I'll be sitting in and helping out as I can. So thank you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you to Tanisha and Lawrence. We're excited to have you with us, and thank you so much to Melissa for all the work that you've done for the committee and your continued support as we move forward. So we didn't actually have this on the agenda, but knowing that we have a new council member with us, I'm wondering if maybe we want to go around and just do very brief introductions with the staff and the other council members, just so you know who we all are. I can just start it off. My name's Jared Shaw. I'm a grant manager and workforce analyst with YDO, and I'm one of the staff that coordinates this committee. And I'll popcorn it over to Bill.
Greetings, my name is Bill Hansel. I'm a grant manager and data lead, and my apologies for being late. I've been slammed this morning with project plan meetings that ran long. So good to be here and welcome to the new faces. And I will, I guess, Lawrence or Brian, I don't know if Lawrence has already introduced himself as part of something that happened earlier.
Yeah, I can jump in. Thanks, Bill. Brian Detman, Youth Development Director. Happy to be here. And I think we've heard from other stuff. I think Cord is, did I see Cord's face on here somewhere? There's
Yeah,
Cord.
hi, I'm here. I'm just kind of listening, and I'm not part of the staff to the committee, but I've been talking with committee folks earlier this week. It sounds like the conversation could touch on things from the strategic plan, so I thought I should just be handy in case there are any questions about that or about the document that we shared last week with all of the stuff that came up in our retreat. So I'm just listening in otherwise, but it's nice to be here. Should perhaps popcorn it. I will send it back over to some folks from the council, maybe. I think that's everyone from the staff who's here. So maybe I'll pass it over to Zan.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we can hear
yes.
you.
Okay, thank you. I'm using mobile version of Zoom, and I'm not familiar with it. I am a YDC member, and I've been on this committee since we formed it, and I am a Benton County Commissioner, and I'm looking forward to today's meeting.
Hey, Zan, I'll jump in since you're working from the home. It's probably from the phone. It's hard to see faces. Jeff Parker here. Good to see everyone. I'm a YDC member that I think I'm in my fourth or fifth year. So this is my second lap in terms of a term. And in my day job, I'm the executive director of an organization called Northwest Youth Corps, headquartered in Eugene, Oregon. And I think that's where I get to hand it off to Jocelyn.
Hi everyone, my name is Jocelyn de la Garza. I use she, her pronouns, and I am currently at OHSU. I'm a senior communication specialist for DEI. I'm really happy to be here and get started on some work and get to work with all of you. I also put my name pronunciation in the chat if you want to look at it later.
Excellent. All right. Did we get everybody? Did we miss anybody?
That's everyone.
All right. Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to sort of regroup and just set our expectations and think about where we've come over the last year, just since there's been a little bit of a pause since we last met. If you recall, we canceled the November meeting, so I think our last meeting was actually August. So it's been about 6 months since we've met. So for new committee members who are council members who are joining us, this is actually a really great time to be here. They're sort of resetting and regrouping and figuring out what the next stage should be with this committee and where we can go. So just as a reminder to all of you, the accomplishments that you've made over the last year have been really incredible. So this committee, just as some background for new folks, this committee was created out of our strategic plan that I think was from 2021, if I'm correct. And so that formed this committee. And, the committee started off meeting about monthly at the beginning, and we've now shifted to quarterly meetings. But over the first year, about year and a half, the committee wrote an equity statement, wrote an equity lens toolkit to guide our work at YDO, and also came up with a new land acknowledgement toolkit. So those were 3 pretty awesome accomplishments, and we thank you all for that. And now we're at a point where we kind of have a chance to recalibrate, think about what's coming next. I know we as staff have some thoughts about what we can prioritize and where this committee can advise us. But just wanted to take a moment there to acknowledge where we've come, what we've done, just sort of refresh our minds and see if anybody has any thoughts on that. No.
Hey, Jared, I appreciate that. I'll just say out loud, I was like, oh wait, the land acknowledgement toolkit work that we did was sort of forgotten, and I think maybe important for us to check back in I think for those Jocelyn and others, Lawrence and Tanisha, like I think we had decided that just saying a land acknowledgement at the beginning of every meeting did feel like the right step, but that we should be really intentional about when and how we're using land acknowledgements. Maybe post-meeting, we can send around the toolkit, as we called it, because there was some guidance about which times and places and how to use and land acknowledgements, but it just occurs to me that probably would be helpful to refamiliarize ourselves with that. And then while necessarily doing it in this kind of performative way, we should also say where maybe are there places where we're not doing it that we should, or maybe there's some things that we're not doing that because we haven't looked at it in a while, that are important. So
Yeah. Thanks, Brian. And absolutely, yes, we can send those documents out, and Jocelyn, you can take a look at those and get caught up. Yes, Melissa, I see a hand.
I was just going to add to what Brian shared, that it was all done like under the guidance of the 9 tribes. It was like YDO didn't come to the toolkit on our own. We did it following advisement of the 9 tribes. Is that right, Brian? Do you remember that?
There was definitely some guidance from Legislative Committee on Indian Services, LCIS. So that's where
okay, that's right.
Guidance and questions about that agencies should consider as they're developing that. Bill, I see you shaking your head. So it was from LCIS, Legislative Committee on Indian Services.
That's right. Thank you.
Great. All right. So I think we can probably move to the next item, which is council or committee chair nominations and elections. I'm going to pass this over to Bill.
This is one of my favorite assignments because it just keeps going. It's the gift that keeps giving. But here we are again. We do need Jeff, in case you didn't know, you're interim chair. What we'd like to do is be able to elect a chairperson for this committee. I'm so in tune with Grant, I almost said for this grant, it looks like we have 3 members total. So I'm open to electing somebody who's not here, I'm not really sure of the best course of action. Brian, I'd love your input, or committee members, if it's something we want to put off, or if Zan or Jocelyn or Jeff wants to be chair, we can. I think I'm not sure we need to have quorum or those type of things apply, but I'm at this stage, I'm open to suggestions from committee members as best course of action, and if it's necessary, we can. What would you say, Brian? We could postpone it again and keep going. But any thoughts?
Hey, Bill, this is Jeff. So just I want to share my perspective that I think the committee needs a chair, and my personal discomfort with being the chair, just because I don't represent. I'm not a member of any of the communities necessarily that we're talking about frequently in this committee. Not that excludes me from being a good chair, but I would want somebody who has greater lived experience than I do to be the chair. That being said, I'm happy to be the interim chair for meeting after meeting until we do find somebody that really aspires to have that position. So I'm a utility player. Please put me in where I need to be, but it's not a permanent position I'm comfortable with.
Thank you, Jeff, and appreciate that. And it also sparked a memory for me that I believe there was some discussion, maybe, going clear back into October, whenever the last meeting was, that we talked about even maybe co-chairs in some aspect, with a potential youth member co-chairing and working in conjunction with a co-facilitator or co-chair type thing. And that's still on the table as well. But thank you very much, Jeff, for your willingness to I hadn't heard that term before. It'd be a utility player. We'll plug you in where needed, and it is temporary, just to make sure it's a temporary interim chair. But Jocelyn, thank you for pronouncing. Thank you for providing that pronunciation. I hadn't seen one of those before, but it's already been very useful to see the phonetic breakout. So
You're welcome.
that's pretty cool.
I think everyone should use that resource, regardless if you have a complicated name or not.
Yeah. I'm trying to even figure out how Bill, the phonetic spelling of Bill would be, but pretty easy one, I think. Zan, do you have any thoughts, or it sounds like we're going to table it for a future meeting, but I wanted a chance for other input.
I concur with Jeff's statement in terms of representation. And the other consideration for me is that I will be a member through this year, but then my position will sunset with my role as a commissioner. So I would love to bring someone in that can have a little bit longer perspective.
Thank you.
Hey, Zan, I'm sorry, just for clarification, does your position on the YDC sunset?
I am not completely sure.
Okay.
That's maybe something we should find out. I know that from the standpoint of the federal advisory committee, it requires having a commissioner on board, and I will no longer be a commissioner as of the end of December.
Right. Okay.
But I think I will have another year in my term, and I would be perfectly willing to serve that out if it were, if it would be useful and if I could be of service.
And Jocelyn, I see your question about responsibilities. There's really not a ton. It would essentially just be, I would, probably consult with you beforehand on the agenda, and just see if you have anything to add. And then it's really just sort of moving through the meeting, moving from agenda to agenda, but not a huge commitment.
Sweet, thank you.
Jocelyn, I think part of what it would entail, if there are votes or something, you call the, let's have a vote on this, and then the agenda is there, and just kind of guide us through the steps is really, kind of facilitate the meeting is basically all. And that's in conjunction with Jared, myself, and Lawrence and Tanasia supporting that as well. So it looks like there may be a spark of interest, and if so, well, let's note that interest, and then if and when you decide that it's something you'd like to pursue, we can then vote on it at that time. But I don't want to put pressure on you to make a decision, right now, but maybe sit with it for a while, and we'll revisit it next meeting. With that, I think we can conclude, unless there's other comments, the portion on electing a chair.
Bill, I'll just jump in, and y'all have done a great job, and thank you, Bill. Thank you for the questions, Jocelyn and Melissa. Yeah, maybe I'm just reiterating. I think the co-chair thing is great. So if we have a couple of people, practically speaking, it's just good if somebody's busy and can't make the meeting. And so co-chair model, and even in terms of vote, I mean, it's like, there's at the committee level, we don't do a lot of formal voting on items, and we make the committee makes recommendations to the overall Emerging Council. But on the chair front, whether the committee can vote to see who's or nominate and raise hands about who can be the co-chairs. But it would be great to get a couple of people. Maybe it's, Jeff, if you're willing to stay, but we ensure that there's a second person, and it provides that representation, and it provides that practical facilitation piece when maybe somebody else is busy. That'd be really great. And I'll quickly say to Zan's point that Commissioner, we'd love for you to finish out your full 4-year term. You're correct also that having someone who's an elected official is something that is important for our federal work, the state advisory group role that the Youth Development Council plays. So we do want to have somebody who's an elected official, and whether they're elected sheriff or an elected county commissioner or elected judge, or like, I mean, right, it could be someone from a few different, could be a representative, right? That is all possible. So if once you turn as your commissioner role ends, we'd love to have you stay on, and we just need to then work to find another elected. So that's it.
That sounds good. I've been talking to a couple of my fellow commissioners. I have one in particular that's interested. So let's chat later.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. I think we're probably ready to move on to the next item, which is just really committee planning for 2024. So we wanted to run a few things by the entire committee, get your thoughts and feedback. I think first, we just want to settle on some dates. So right now, the cadence is set for quarterly, and I believe it is the last Friday at noon of February. The next one will be May, then August, and then November. So those dates fall on May 31st, August 30th, and November 29th. I checked, Memorial Day is May 27th. So that's at the beginning of that week, but who knows, that could be challenging. But just wanted to run those dates by folks and see if that cadence still feels right and if those dates work for everyone.
Jared, could you repeat those one more time? I'm sorry.
It's May 31st, August 30th, and November 29th.
Are there meeting invitations out for those? Do we know? No, Melissa's shaking down, Tanisha.
Well, actually, no, I'm glad that you brought that up, Brian, because there might be some recurring meetings from the year past that we just had. Actually, those are from my calendar. I'm going to delete those after this meeting. We didn't want to confuse everyone. And Tanisha will take up sending out meeting invitations following this meeting. So good point. Thank you. It looks like November 29th is the day after Thanksgiving. So we might just want to rethink that one, but.
Oh, is it? Interesting. It's funny, I checked Memorial Day. I didn't even check that one. Usually Thanksgiving falls earlier in November. So, okay. Well, let's not do that one.
We'll be at your place, Jared, for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, perfect.
So, we'll just meet there.
Great. I can host. I don't have a very big place, but all right. Do we want to look at maybe the week before that? That would be, let's see.
Yeah, I would recommend the week of the 11th in November. It just seems like that week, the week before Thanksgiving, really people start charging up for travel and anything between Thanksgiving and the December holidays. It would be hard to get attendance, I think.
Absolutely. We're thinking maybe November 15th, that Friday.
I think Jeff, you were saying the week even before that, right? The 8th.
Well, is Thanksgiving the 28th or is it the 21st? Let me look that up real quick.
it's
Thanksgiving will be the 28th, and then the 29th, we're saying no. The week prior to that is the 22nd, and one more week is the 15th.
Yeah, I think I was looking at the 15th, which is two weeks before the Thanksgiving holiday, which seems safe from this distance anyways.
Perfect. All right. So would those 3 dates work for folks?
Yep. They're clear for me right now.
All right, so we will get those calendar invites sent out for May 31st, August 30th, and November 15th. Great, thank you all. We also had new member recruitment on here. Again, just always reiterating that we would love some new members. We have 3 new council members. Anybody is welcome to join. Yoseline, thank you for coming and checking us out. And again, just this is a great time to join the committee. We're sort of in that period where we're thinking about what we're doing in this next year. We're at the beginning of the year. We're at a sort of recalibration point. So we have a lot of opportunity here to dive into some new interesting stuff. So just wanted to throw that out there. And then just we can move into some discussion of potential areas that we might work on. So as staff, we had mulled over a few things. I know that we have talked about sovereign nation funding before, about how that is a potential option that we are looking into, about a dedicated pool of funding for sovereign nations for grant funding. So that feels important. It feels like there's definitely some more work to do on that before we can have a robust conversation about it, but wanted to put that out there as definitely an area where we see this committee having valuable input. Also, the equity lens application. So I know folks had brought up that we have the equity lens, we have areas in the lens where we say we're going to apply it, and then we might need to think a little bit more about how do we actually do that? How do we hold ourselves to that? How do we, make sure that we are applying it where we say that we are? And then we also have Lawrence here for racial and ethnic disparity work. So there's a lot of interesting work happening in that realm that we wanted to pull in to this committee as well. And Lawrence, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I can turn it over to you if you want to talk a little bit more about what that looks like too. So just throwing some topics out there that we think might be good next steps.
Yes, and thank you, Jared. I appreciate that. So the racial and ethnic disparities work. One of the primary responsibilities of a racial and ethnic disparity coordinator is to facilitate the reduction and or elimination of racial and ethnic disparities in the juvenile justice system, which is actually one of the core 4 requirements of states and territories receiving Title II formula grant funding, from the Federal Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, OJJDP. With our committee, our Equity and Disparities Committee, we could be instrumental in providing guidance, not only to our state advisory group, our SAG, but also to our statewide stakeholders in understanding the impact and unequitable and disparate outcomes of all youth, in the services, we are supporting. So as an equity and disparities staff member, I would like to see, or would like to suggest, that we continue to build on the principles of the Equity Lens Toolkit, previously created and just mentioned by Jared, and offer continued material to support this work, to actually put in practicality this work, to facilitate this work, provide some sort of technical assistance in navigating the landscape of the sensitivity around conversations relating to race and equitable outcomes. So what that looks like and how we arrive at those methods, are certainly up for discussion as a committee, and are hopefully supported by our state advisory group. The topic of equity and disparities when discussed is often closely related to racial and ethnic disparities as well. So to include this area in our current work as a committee strengthens the overall conversation and outcomes for equity and disparities faced by our youth populations. So to take advantage of the opportunity that's in front of us, we have a committee that's focused on equity and disparity. I just think it's a perfect combination, or a perfect marriage, so to speak, of racial and ethnic disparity work with this committee. And if anyone else has anything to add, please, more than welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just jump in, Lawrence. I concur, and what I think this committee could probably like have some eyes and ears and conversation about is the kind of two areas of work that I think our Juvenile Justice Committee probably has up till this point more exposure to, and that is that one of the charges that Lawrence, and not just Lawrence, but we as a agency have vis-a-vis our work with the federal government is to produce a racial and ethnic disparities plan. And Lawrence, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's submitted as part of a kind of a broader application, if you will, a broader sort of document that we're submitting to the Federal Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. So it would hopefully, and I think would be good and valuable for this committee, for Lawrence to say, okay, here's what's in the plan. Here's what it looks like. Because I don't know that, Jeff, you've been on the council for a while. Zan, Yoselin, obviously, I know you're newer, but I don't know that folks generally are like aware of what's in that plan. So that's one thing, like just like, okay, so here's what we're saying we're doing. What does that mean? What are our questions? Again, that conversation to some extent happens at the Juvenile Justice Committee. I think it could be really valuable to have here. The second thing is not so much this spring, but next spring, and again, Lawrence or others, if I get this wrong, I know I'll be corrected, but we then every couple of years are asking counties to submit plans, juvenile crime prevention plans in relation to money that youth development administers that comes from our state general fund. It's called Juvenile Crime Prevention, or JCP dollars. And so counties submit a plan every couple of years. And in that, as a part of that planning process, we asked some questions, which I think the council has had various bits and pieces of information come to them, because a couple of years ago there was some, I don't know what tension, some like, wait, what's this question and how do we answer it and what does it mean, and so on and so forth. I think we wanted to hold counties more responsible for their responses and actually follow through. So again, not to get too down into the weeds, but it probably would be helpful to, as a part of this committee, to also make sure that the committee is both aware of what we're asking from counties, but then also what counties are saying in response. Now, we don't necessarily need to duplicate the effort of the Juvenile Justice Committee. They do a deeper dive on those plans. They're reviewing, they're doing a fair amount of work. Like, actually, committee members are, because it's a responsibility that we have legislative, like in terms of statute, if I'm not mistaken, but to review the plans. I'm not saying that you all need to, if you want to review a bunch of plans, we can make that happen for you. But it is a place where there's real, I would say, kind of operational work happening. But that's all to say that hearing specifically what counties are telling us, or getting a sample of what counties are telling us, and tribes, don't forget, tribes also submit plans, could be educational, informational, but then to help to understand, okay, so what's happening programmatically to reduce and eliminate disparities in juvenile justice. And I'll cut to the chase here. Some of it is powerful and impactful. Other things are less so, or some counties are have less capacity, less ability to sort of like, what are we supposed to do? How do we do this? We don't know what to do. So you kind of see a wide ranging, I'll call it implementation. So it could be interesting for us to think through in collaboration with the Juvenile Justice Committee. We don't want these things happening in isolation, but to hear more about county and tribal plans. I've said enough, but more as a sort of a sales pitch, but also just kind of like give you a little bit more meat on what that work with Lawrence's work might look like. Any thoughts or questions?
That all sounds great. I think it's a good work focus, both the equity lens and diving in a little bit deeper to the racial and ethnic disparities plans and the data that we have, and the plans both for the state and the federal level. So that's exciting. I hear you about not duplicating what the Juvenile Justice Committee is doing, but I think that we probably should be more in the loop.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. This is Jeff. I agree with that too. And Lawrence and Brian, good synopsis of it. You know, I'm wondering, this goes to Cord now in terms of where we are with the strategic plan and what the role of this committee might be to make sure that these pieces get included in strategic plan, or that there's an accountability structure around it. That's one thought. And then my other thought, Brian, I think this is to you, question, you know, dedicated tribal funding. This is something that I've been working with the Office of Workforce Investment with as well over at the HEC. Are there statutory challenges with that? Or is that something that we can do as a council? If we were given money from the legislature, could this council make that determination? Or does there need to be an appropriations language in the funding itself?
Or do you want to answer both of those, or at least take a stab both at the strategic plan?
Yeah, I'll do it in reverse order if that's okay. Yeah, I mean, I think to the second question, Jeff, one of the things that we did in our statutory updates was adjust the language slightly with some advice from DOJ to more explicitly permit the council to designate grant programs, to say we should use money to do X. I don't think that the council could not do that, but it was just sort of ambiguous. And we felt like if we were going to try to do this and not have a direct mandate to do it, that it would be good to have it be clear that the council can make a decision to pursue a grant model or a type of grant or a purpose for a grant. So the council could direct it, we think. I mean, it's, you know, you can put it in statute, but there still could theoretically be some form of challenge to anything that the council might seek to do. We did put forward a policy option package, or POP, requesting funds to do a few different things. We haven't yet heard back on that. I think because it's still with the governor's office as to whether the POPs will be approved. We're not supposed to talk in detail about what we've asked for because it may all be denied. But we did identify that as a potential use of funds if we were to get these funds, that specifically saying we want to do a sovereign nation fund, and these are the reasons why we think this is important. So if that goes forward and there's some support from the governor's office to pursue that, that would certainly help us to go in that direction. So I think there's more to support the possibility we can do it. I think if it does start to materialize, we'll just want to work really closely with our colleagues at ODE and the Office of Indian Education and other agencies that have found effective ways to do this, just to make sure we do it right. To the more strategic plan question, I mean, I think so next week, the Policy Rules and Research Committee is meeting. One of the things that I'm going to try to discuss with that committee are just some questions that we'll also ask the full council about kind of next steps in strategic planning. One of those questions is, like, at this stage, as we're kind of developing the plan, does it make sense for committees to sort of like take parts of that work? Or is it more that after we build a plan, then we, are going to look to the committees to own parts of the plan? I don't know what may make sense. And my hope is to actually get feedback from council members on what they would like the process to look like. Because we're kind of at a point where we can kind of go a few different ways in terms of actually developing our draft plan, getting feedback, finalizing the plan over the next few months. But I do kind of think that in terms of making sure that there are things that this committee thinks are really important and wants to ensure are in our plan. I mean, I think as individual council members, certainly that's something that anyone could sort of offer and say, hey, I want to make sure we're doing this. If you check out the document that we shared, if there's something that's missing, another question we want to continuously ask is what don't we have in here that feels really crucial? So I think that there's a lot of opportunities to continue to sort of identify actions or priorities for a strategic plan. I mean, what I shared is just sort of this first flush of ideas that we'll try to refine. But I think anything the committee says, hey, like even you as a committee could maybe say, hey, here are like 5 things that we really want to make sure we are doing in our next strategic plan, or 15 things or whatever. And I think the committees certainly could decide to do those sort of things to say, hey, we talked and we really think this is important based on our committee's charge. So I think that's another way you could consider doing it. I don't want to, preclude something like that either, but the goal right now is to add and not subtract from the plan. So we definitely would say bring things that you think are important. Thanks.
Thanks, Gordon. I appreciate that. And I as a member of this committee and of the council in general, I mean, as volunteers, we have benefited so greatly from the work of the staff. And I think where we've gotten, I think when we're at our best, the council and the staff working together, we're advisory to that plan, and so we're a value add as opposed to the architect. And so whenever the strategic plan is at the, it's sort of rough in state, I think, let me rephrase this differently. I think the earlier that we can get involved in it, probably the better. But that we also, as committee members, need to really stay in our lane and provide, the last 10% of value instead of try to design the entire thing.
Thanks, Jeff. I mean, one other thought to sort of maybe respond to that is that as we've worked as a staff trying to digest everything that happened at the retreat, it's definitely been a little bit of like folks saying, hey, like, I don't see this thing here, or this isn't clear enough to me. I think particularly around equity, and I think there are some ideas, some opportunities, some actions that are already identified that advance equity. I mean, there's one category of work that specifically touches on it, but I think it filters throughout. But if, as this develops, the committee says, like, I just don't think this needs to be a finer point, or this needs to be more explicit, or this should, be done in a way that better achieves that. I think that's that last 10%. I think that is really important, is for you to kind of check the work and say, I think this could be done better to achieve some goals around equity.
Thanks, Will. I just wonder, and maybe Jared, I don't want to step in or Bill on y'all, but is if Zan or Jocelyn, any thoughts or questions? You'll know that about maybe it was a week ago today, I sent out, I don't know, those late Friday emails, but a email with kind of a, hey, quick, YDC update, but included the very early sort of draft doc of the planning retreat information. So just know that you have that in your inboxes. Please start to think about questions or comments for the quarterly meeting, but I don't know, I'll shut up if there's anything either of you want to add to the conversation.
Thank you, Ryan. At this moment, I don't.
I have not yet had a chance to look at those documents. Looking forward to doing so. But I will definitely look at them from the vantage point of what's missing and whether or not we can add a sharper point on issues of equity and racial disparity.
Great. All right. I guess any final thoughts on any of this work, how we want to move forward before we move into public comment?
Hey, Jared, sorry to late here on that. As staff starts to build the agenda for the next meeting, I'm happy to participate in the creation of that and at least be a thought partner in how we bring these topics and kind of work through them.
Perfect. I will be in touch. Thank you. All right. Well, I get, yeah, being mindful of time, I think it's 12:55. I don't think there are any members of the public. Is that correct, Tanisha?
Yeah, there's no one in the waiting room. And there's no comments either.
All right. Well, unless anyone has any other thoughts, I suppose we can let you go 5 minutes early. All right, Jeff, would you like to adjourn us if there are no final thoughts?
Sure will, Jared. I'm not seeing any final thoughts, so we will officially adjourn the Equity and Disparity Committee meeting at 12:56. Thanks, everyone.